Hello, gardeners. I'm Xandra here with your happy news. Gardeners, a New Zealand based eco startup company called Compostify, alongside scientists at SICON, have created a world first, eco friendly, easily compostable bioplastic pot for plants that's built for nature by nature. They started with a mission to replace conventional plastics with materials that could work in harmony with nature, and they especially felt a need to target the garden nursery industry as they aim to replace the 350 million plastic pots produced annually in New Zealand alone. While there are other versions of biodegradable pots made of wood pulp, coconut fiber, peat, or other natural blends, most of these biodegradable pots can only last around 6 weeks to 6 months on average, which may not be the most convenient or efficient for manufacturers or in a retail setting. After 5 years of research and over 40,000 compostable pots tested, they found a formula that was able to withstand a much longer shelf life, up to 12 months once filled with soil, and could be engineered to remain shelf stable in storage by performing like conventional plastics without premature breakdown. Their formula is made up of biopolymers made from sustainably grown crops such as sugarcane, cassava, and corn. When planted directly in the ground, the pot provides fertilizer for the plant as it biodegrades because it's all made from crops containing only natural occurring chemicals and nutrients, which attracts microbes to eat it while leaving no microplastics or toxic residue behind. Whether in the ground, at home in a compost bin, or in industrial compost facilities, these pots can empower growers, nurseries, distributors, and manufacturers to transition to sustainable materials without sacrificing performance or ease of use. And it seems there's already a lot of expectation for these pots, as multi-ton orders have already been placed. Brian, what do you think?
Well, that's our world. Is growing plants sustainably, growing our citrus organically. And, we're always trying new ones. There's been lots of manufacturers. I've been doing this for a long time. And we've done things like Jiffy pots and paper pulp pots and lots of different containers. And whether the plastic gets recycled from nursery containers, which it doesn't near as often as it could, and whether we find biodegradable sources, I think the most important thing is we're always working for those ends and trying to find new things that work. And, we find a big difference here in our desert climate with how things last in the soil versus other places. And it's always fun to try new things. And we have Ron that works with us. And Ron actually samples. We're sampling some other different pots here. And even the people that run our stadium with our packaging for our citrus, that we put in the grocery stores, we try to use as much cardboard as we can. And we try to find a packaging that's going to be biodegradable as possible, to work on the system. And that's where we get to our Christmas trees. There's nothing more biodegradable than a Christmas tree. We have Christmas trees that come basically from two sources. We have farmers, and it's the Murphys and the Hunters now. Our Wisconsin farmers, they're a little behind, so we're waiting for more crops to come out of there in a few years. But Christmas trees take anywhere from about 4 to 25 years to grow. And some of the natural trees, like the silvertips that come from the high ranges in Northern California, those trees can take up to 40 or 50 years to make a big Christmas tree. And so it's really fun. But the nice part with all these things is they're basically cleaning the air. And when they're all done and recycled, they go right back into compost piles. And the cities here in Maricopa County, and you could mention all the major cities, are all very good at composting Christmas trees and utilizing this compost to go back into our environment. So the difference between plastics and organics, is the amount of time it takes to break them down. And as many people as live on this planet and as many as live here in this valley, some of the things are very, eco-friendly. And anything we do with organics, we've had several callers this morning already talking about, changing maybe the rubber mulch around their trees or, using things like gravel mulch. Our granite source that we use here, is a very good natural commodity here that we use to cover areas, to protect them, to retain water and things. And unfortunately, we've got into a lot of synthetics with our artificial lawns, which really absorb a tremendous amount of heat and aren't biodegradable. So before we put anything into our landscape or before we buy things and as we use products that we're going to use, it's always good to take time, just like they're doing with these containers, to research how we can make them more biodegradable, because what we leave for our children and grandchildren in the future is our responsibility. Great story. You know, you put me to work with these stories, where, okay, Brian, so what are you doing about organic pots?
I like to make you think.
Well, and it's the recyclable, amount of materials. It's whether we use wood boxes or plastic containers, and we use some of both. And what we try to do is recycle all the plastic containers time and time again. And sometimes that's, more environmental too. And there's always different sides and options and opinions. But as long as we're mindful and working together, we can accomplish almost anything in this planet. Great story.
Hello, gardeners. I'm Xandra here with your happy news. Gardeners, it's the season of the Christmas tree. And whether you have your tree up already or are still debating over real or fake this year, you may be wondering which one is considered more eco-friendly. Approximately 21 million real trees and 12 million artificial trees will be purchased by U.S. households this Christmas season. And while it may feel counterintuitive, the reality is that real trees are the more eco-friendly option. This is because it's much more sustainable to cut down a real tree each year as opposed to the amount of carbon emissions and other waste created in the process of making, shipping, and disposal of fake trees. A 6 or 7 foot artificial tree can produce more than 10 times the amount of carbon emissions in its life cycle than a real tree would, even if it was burned after Christmas. Most small-scale Christmas tree farms are inherently sustainable, leaving certain sections open for harvesting each year while closing in other sections with seedlings to give younger trees a chance to grow. They may also be using land that's not suitable for other kinds of agriculture, but the trees are still able to provide environmental benefits to the wildlife in the area. And like Brian has mentioned, real Christmas trees are also 100% biodegradable, meaning that your tree can completely return to the earth by next season. They can also be recycled by being turned into lumber, mulch, composted and used as fertilizer, or even fed to goats and alpacas. So if you want a sustainable holiday, go green with a real tree. And I know a great place where you can get one. Brian, my apartment has smelled amazing and like Christmas since I picked up my tree yesterday.
Well, I didn't know you were going to do an ad for us today, Xandra, but, it really does make a difference, folks. And if you care about the planet, Christmas trees are very sustainable and grown by wonderful families, or they're harvested by people like Jim Armstrong as part of the thinning process with the trees up in the high Sierras. So, nature does a wonderful job at protecting us. If we can be kind to nature, we can certainly help to reciprocate. And thanks, Xandra. I didn't know you were going to do a Christmas story.
Hey, I'm just being honest. My apartment really does smell amazing. When I woke up this morning, I was just like, oh, Christmas.
Well, we could tell those poor people that have a plastic tree that they could come out to Whitfield's and get a nice wreath or a garland or something else to bring that same fragrance indoors.
Yeah, and the natural fragrance is better for your pets, too, because any artificial fragrance,
Oh, you have to spray it out of an aerosol can?
Yeah, that's not as good for your fur babies.
The aerosol Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, didn't know Xandra was going to do that story.
Hello, gardeners. I'm Xandra here with your happy news. Gardeners, we all know the Rockefeller Christmas tree in New York City. And what started as just a bunch of construction workers in 1931 putting up a 20-foot Christmas tree to help celebrate while they were working on the Rockefeller Center has now turned into a well-loved annual tradition, bringing around 125 million visitors every year. The tree usually stands between 75 and 100 feet tall and is at least 45 feet around. It usually takes years to select. But when the holidays are over and it's time to take the tree down, it doesn't go to waste. And that's not just because trees are biodegradable, but it's also because the Rockefeller tree goes right into charity work, as it's donated to Habitat for Humanity to be turned into lumber to help build homes. Over across the pond, I found a neighborhood in the UK that has their own Rockefeller Christmas tree, and their tradition also brings holiday joy and charity work. This one all started in a neighborhood in Worcestershire, England, where the Rowlands bought their tiny fir tree for $6 in 1978 and planted it in their yard to mark the first holiday together in their new home. Now, they have their own light switching on ceremony for a Christmas tree that is now so tall it requires the help of the local cherry picker to help decorate it. After 45 years of nurturing and community love, the Christmas tree now stands over 52 feet tall and is a real fixture in the community, not only gaining 5-star reviews on Google Maps, but it's also a part of charity work. Instead of getting cut down every year like Rockefeller, they use the fixture to help raise thousands of dollars for all kinds of charities in the UK, like the British Heart Foundation, their local food banks, and charities for Alzheimer's research. Brian, Christmas joy all around the world.
You know, it's really fun, Xandra. And 2 years ago, my son John and I were back at a citrus convention in New York, and we happened to be there for the lighting of the Christmas tree at Rockefeller
Oh, wow.
Center. Well, oh, wow is right. We could see the tree from, we actually were passing by across the street, and the amount of density of people there in New York were just amazing. But the week before, we had just been up because it snowed so much in Northern California, harvesting trees with the White Mountain Apache tribe. We had a group of Native American veterans that were working up there. So you go from 2 days in the forest where you don't see a person and there's not a person within 20 miles to New York City and see the joy that those trees bring when they come into town. And it's a great story that the fact that the Rockefellers were involved with it being recycled, because the one difference between live real trees and plastic fake trees is they're all recyclable. And here in the city of Phoenix, Tempe, Mesa, Chandler, we have wonderful recycling programs for grinding the trees up and putting them back into life. So really, live trees are part of the circle of life. They clean the air while they're here, and then they go right back into that carbon-based light form, trail. So wonderful story, wonderful trees, and it's amazing how one tree that someone could plant in their home could just draw so much attention and be so beautiful.
I agree.
Nice story.
Hello, gardeners. I'm Xandra here with your happy news. Gardeners, a team of childhood friends in a farming town in Indonesia have found a way to make a plant-based leather alternative out of mushrooms. And it all started because they just wanted to find a solution to a massive air pollution problem caused by their local farmers burning off the old crop waste multiple times a year. The team is called MYCL, and they said they originally set out to find a solution because their kids kept suffering from respiratory diseases caused by the air pollution from the crop burn. So they looked at the problem as an opportunity to find a constructive solution for their community, and in the process, they ended up creating the mushroom leather. They were inspired by a traditional soybean recipe for a dish called tempeh, which is traditionally made by binding soybeans together with mushroom mycelium roots. In this case, though, they used the crop waste instead of soybeans to grow the mushrooms. So now, MYCL buys the crop waste from the local farmers, grinds it up and mixes it with water while injecting it with mushroom spores. Then after a few weeks, each batch grows a layer of mycelium on top, which they can peel off, clean and kill the fungi. They then stretch it, moisturize it, and coat it to keep it flexible and durable. And the end product is fairly similar to real leather. It's durable enough to be used to make any product you would usually expect, like purses, shoes, watch straps, wallets, and so much more. Brian, I think it's so cool to see a community coming together to find eco-friendly, healthier solutions for their families, while also evidently discovering a way to make a pretty cool alternative product that could impact something as large as the sustainable global fashion industry.
That's an amazing story, something I was completely unaware of. And isn't nature beautiful?
Yes.
And these young minds that we have out here doing different things, they can find solutions to everything. Plastics are probably one of our worst enemies in our whole environment.
Right.
And being able to use something organic to replace them, whether we do live Christmas trees or we do, mushroom-grown handbags, what wonderful ways to make our environment more sustainable for our future. Great stories, Xandra.
Thank you.